This is a demo of Lumimail, an AI-powered Gmail assistant that manages email templates using Google Drive. In this video, we will demonstrate why Lumimail requires full Google Drive access, the auth drive scope, and why the limited drive file scope is insufficient. We'll walk through Lumimail's UI and its code to show how it automatically creates folders, saves files, searches Drive, lists templates, and uses file IDs. Features that demand a broader drive scope. Auto creation of template folder. On first use, the app programmatically creates a dedicated Drive folder for templates. The function create your template folder searches the user's Drive for the folder name and creates it if not found. This happens behind the scenes, without requiring the user to manually pick a location. The code constructs a Drive query by folder name and issues a Drive API request to find it, then sends a post request to create the folder if needed. Operations that need broad drive access. Lumimail automatically creates and accesses a dedicated Google Drive folder for your email templates, without any manual file selection. When you use Lumimail for the first time, it checks if a Lumimail templates folder exists in your Drive and creates it if not. This happens behind the scenes using the Drive API. This auto creation of a Drive folder is not possible with the restricted Drive file scope alone, which only allows access to files the app created or opened via a user action. Lumimail needs to search your Drive for an existing folder by name and create one if missing, a capability that requires full Drive access. If none is found, it creates a new folder via the Drive API. Here, the code create or get template folder queries Drive for a folder named Lumimail templates. This programmatic folder creation happens without user intervention. With only Drive file scope, Lumimail wouldn't be allowed to search the Drive for an existing folder by name, nor seamlessly create one in my Drive on its own. Full Drive scope is required for this automated setup. Next, Lumimail saves an email template directly to Google Drive. We'll generate or compose an email and use Lumimail's generate or save template feature. The extension will upload the template file to the Drive folder automatically. When the user saves a template, Lumimail uses the Drive API to upload the file in the background. It already knows the folder ID from the previous step, so it directly creates a new file in that folder. This direct file upload without a user file picker is something the full Drive scope enables. With the limited Drive file scope, the extension could only access files it created if they were still in its context, and it would struggle to create new files unless initiated through a Google picker. Lumimail's design avoids any picker. It just calls the API. In the code, Lumimail constructs the file metadata, including the target folder ID and content, then posts it to the Drive file's endpoint. The template, for example, welcome email, TML, is created inside the Lumimail folder automatically. No user action is required to choose a location or authorize this specific file. Lumimail manages it. This level of automation is only possible with broad Drive scope. In fact, Lumimail's code even anticipates that using a restricted scope would fail. It checks for a 403 error from Drive and alerts the user that permissions are insufficient. Behind the scenes, Lumimail knew the Drive file ID for welcome email from the listing. It uses that ID to retrieve the file's content directly from Drive via API. Using the file ID is crucial because it remains constant even if the file is renamed or moved. Lumimail can reliably fetch the correct file as long as it has the ID. This is another reason Lumimail needs full Drive scope to use file IDs for direct access. The limited scope would not allow arbitrarily fetching a file by ID unless the app already had explicit access to that exact file from a user action. Now we'll load one of the templates. The user selects the new customer template from Lumimail's list and clicks import. Lumimail will fetch the content of that file from Drive and load it into the email editor. This code, list JSON HTML files and folder, shows the Drive API query that gathers all files in the Lumimail folder. Because Lumimail has full Drive scope, it can enumerate every file in that folder without requiring the user to individually select each file. If Lumimail were restricted to drive.file, it could not freely list files in this manner. It would only know about files that the user specifically opened or that were created in the current session. By needing to show a whole folder's contents at once, Lumimail justifies the use of the broader scope. Next, Lumimail saves an email template directly to Google Drive. We'll generate or compose an email and use Lumimail's Save Template feature. The extension will upload the template file to the Drive folder automatically, listing all templates in the folder. The function lists JSON and HTML files in folder with folder ID, shows Lumimail querying an entire folder for its contents. It builds a query for Drive that filters by the folder's ID, folder ID and parents, and file types, JSON or HTML, and then fetches the list of matching files. This folder-wide listing allows the app to see all template files at once in the My Smart Email Templates directory. With only Drive file scope, the app would not be able to perform such a broad list unless each file in the folder had been individually created or selected via the app, an impractical requirement. Searching by name or type. Lumimail's folder creation logic uses a query to find a folder by name across the user's Drive. Additionally, the function fetch templates from Drive, and a variant for GDocs, constructs a query to find all files of certain MIME types, Google Docs or JSON, in the Drive. This means Lumimail can look up template files wherever they are, not just those it created in the current session. Such querying of Drive for files in general is something the drive.file scope does not allow. It does not support querying or listing files in a general way across the user's Drive. The full scope is needed for the app to execute these search queries and retrieve results. Enumerating Google Sheets. Example, beyond templates, Lumimail integrates with Google Sheets for bulk email sending. The code in Google Sheets API. JS lists all Google Sheets in the user's Drive by querying for files where MIME type equal application/VND. Google-apps.spreadsheet. This is a broad search that pulls in file metadata, ID and name, for every spreadsheet the user has. Clearly, with Drive file the app could not simply fetch the list of all sheets in Drive. The user would have to individually authorize each spreadsheet. The code's ability to query and list files by type shows why Lumimail needs the full Drive scope to implement features that search across the user's Drive for templates, sheets, etc., without cumbersome user selection workflows. In the code, when the user confirms the import, Lumimail grabs the selected file's ID, file value, and MIME type. It then calls either fetch Drive JSON file or fetch Drive HTML file with that ID. These functions use a Drive API call files/file ID, auth equal media, to download the file content by ID. Thanks to storing and using the file ID, Lumimail can open the correct template even if the file was renamed in Drive later. The ID doesn't change. Without full Drive scope, however, the extension couldn't just retrieve an arbitrary file by ID like this unless the file was explicitly opened by the user each time. This ID-centric design underscores the need for persistent, broad access. Lumimail's Drive integration isn't limited to that folder. For instance, to support its mail merge features, Lumimail can search your entire Drive for Google Sheets or other files. This broad query capability is another reason it needs auth/Drive. This code shows Lumimail listing all Google Sheets in the user's Drive. Clearly, this is a broad search across Drive content. The Drive file scope cannot support this. It would require the user to individually open each sheet. Full Drive scope lets Lumimail perform such searches to enhance functionality, like picking a sheet as an email recipient list, without cumbersome user interactions. In summary, Lumimail's functionality, automatic Drive folder creation, behind-the-scenes file uploads, folder-wide file listing, Drive-wide search, and ID-based file access, all require the full Google Drive API scope. We have demonstrated how Lumimail seamlessly manages Google Drive files on the user's behalf to provide a smooth experience in Gmail. Using the restricted Drive file scope would break or severely limit these features. For example, Lumimail wouldn't be able to find the template folder or list all templates without manual file picks, nor reliably open a template that was renamed. Full Drive access is justified and necessary for Lumimail under Google's Workspace API policy, as it enables the extension to provide its intended features. a rich, automated template management system tightly integrated with Google Drive.